But I was thinking, Adam, rather than just having another chat about Cyberpunk, because we've talked about that a lot, I was thinking we could maybe talk about games that maybe deserve a second chance. And this can be games that either, panned with reviewers, but, you played it and it's like, oh, this is actually surprisingly good. Or games that came out that were kind of a mess, kind of got to the wayside, and then people eventually forgot about, but got improved on the back end and turned out really good. So if you don't have one off the go, I can lead this topic, but if you want to go first, you certainly can. What do you got?
Okay. I'm gonna go with the easy one for me, and this isn't like a second chance so much as I'm going to give you one more shot to not fuck it up.
Mm-hmm.
Mass Effect Andromeda. Because the game wasn't bad, but the story, which is the whole thing that people liked about Mass Effect, was utter garbage.
Okay.
So I think I said it. I probably said it at some point when I first talked about Outriders. The beginning of Outriders is exactly what Mass Effect Andromeda should have been. So I'll summarize both really quickly. In Mass Effect Andromeda, you and a bunch of people from different races are all put into hypersleep, and you're shot into the Andromeda galaxy over the course of, I think, of like almost a century. And this is happening already long past like the events of the original trilogy. Because the idea is you're going to go colonize on a new planet now, or new galaxy now, because at this point, like, there's only going to be so many more opportunities to colonize on the Milky Way before we're going to eventually blow it up. So who knows? Mm-hmm. Just in case, let's have a whole civilization elsewhere so we can keep it going. And you decide on, this is the planet we're going to go at. This is going to be our home. This is going to be our first home, and we're going to spread out from there. And it was supposed to be perfect. Literally the most perfect copy of Earth possible. And then you get there, and it's already fucked. Already fucked beyond recognition. It's a planet of storms. It sucks. And then you get there, and the first thing you do is finally see a new alien race, and instead of first contact, you have to fight them no matter what. So your entire game about exploration and discovery starts with everything's fucked, and you have to fight. So it lost that purpose. Whereas
turns out we were the monsters all along.
Yeah. Whereas Outriders puts you on this planet, and it looks great. Beautiful waterfalls, like wildlife like you've never seen before, but they look tasty. And then you get to a certain point, and then you realize, oh shit, something's wrong with this planet. And then, the story goes to wherever it is. But the idea that at least Outriders gave you a fucking second to enjoy the planet you were supposed to colonize on. Because I said with Andromeda, I've said it so many times on different shows or on my own channel and whatever else. If I got to remake Andromeda from story aspect, I would not even have you fire your weapon for at least an hour in that game. I want you, as the explorer, to find what's on the planet. That means traversing, seeing just wildlife run off, finding ruins. Like, my goal was to be like, I want this game to be you go on a planet that when you first saw it, looked like there was no life, but in reality, you just landed on a world that's like us in caveman era.
Yeah.
So that way it's now you being the aliens on a caveman world. I thought that could be cool, and then the enemies would be like, I don't know, like another alien race in that galaxy that are trying to take over the planet and just enslave the caveman population or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But there's something cool with that because it's the exploration aspect. It's the finding new stuff. It's like it's like being the Christopher Columbus without the racist, enslavery, murderer bullshit. But all that cool stuff. That is a second chance I want. It's never obviously going to happen because it's a pure hypothetical, and I just got to hope that the sequel to the trilogy ends up being good. But Andromeda could have been so good if they actually tried to make the game they said they were going to, because it was supposed to be a game about you exploring a new galaxy and being able to find all these new things, when in reality it was a game where you fight fucking aliens and explore a couple of planets, I guess.
Yeah, for me, I'm looking at a game that did come out. It didn't have great reviews and it was kind of broken. It got fixed along the way, and to be honest, I think is a really good game that kind of a lot of people just dismissed. And for me, that is Assassin's Creed Unity. If you talk to a lot of fans, a lot of them will say that is probably one of the worst ones in the series. But for me, I think it's awesome. It had a bunch of hiccups and glitches, as we do expect from Ubisoft. but like I think it kind of captured what we always wanted from an Assassin's Creed game. So it had, you know, the assassinations, which was always something that like I felt that kind of got lost when Assassin's Creed moved into the new versions with Egypt, Greece, and Valhalla. And I feel like, you know, you had that sort of city, you know, hiding in urban areas, like, you know, hiding in plain sight. The fact that you're able to crouch and go into doors and go into buildings, like that was all really cool. The graphics at the time were amazing. I really liked it. And I think it was one that came out really rough. And a lot of people saw like those hideous deformities in terms of like people missing like their whole faces and just having their eyes. I never had that issue. So my experience was different, but like I thought it was a really good game. And I think they did a lot of work in terms of updating it, making it look better. Like, I think if you are an Assassin's Creed fan and you never got into it, like I would highly recommend checking that one out, because it does sort of, I felt it was the culmination of what everything was working towards. And I felt like it was a good successor to, it like it holds up with stuff like Assassin's Creed 2. Like I would say Assassin's Creed Unity is probably one of my favorite Assassin's Creed games. And it's just because it does have that feeling of the classic Assassin's Creed in an urban environment, hiding in the crowds, going after targets. The characters are cool. The story's kind of neat. Like it's this love story between, you know, this woman who's sort of aligned with the Templars, you're sort of aligned with the Assassins, and how they kind of balance that out. I think it's really cool. And it's something that if you want to check it out, I think it's definitely one that the legacy or what people think of it is no longer what that game is now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've never played Unity because the sense that I got from it was that it was a really broken mess. So I'm like, I've already been burned out of Assassin's Creed. Like, it took me until Black Flag to really get back. And then obviously it took until Odyssey to come back again. So I guess it's kind of like the back and forth of like, I'm not sure which one I want to go with. So I've never gotten around to it. I probably won't at this rate, just because
there's so
much else to do.
Yeah, I would just say like if you are an Assassin's Creed fan, like it does capture that old feel of like Assassin's Creed 2 with Ezio. Like you're climbing these buildings, you're in like a historical European city. I mean, seeing Notre Dame is really cool. And then you do like these little vignettes where you're like they kind of do it now with the modern ones with like Valhalla and stuff, but like you go into like other time periods. So like you're in World War One and like or Paris during World War One or World War Two, I can't remember. But you're like seeing what it could be in different timelines. And I think that was something that was really cool.
Yeah. So we went from game that I want a second chance because I selfishly want them to not screw it up again, to this is a game that I really, really wish that people would give it more attention to and gets a second crack at it. Alpha Protocol, which was a game on 360 PS3.
I was going to say this one too.
So people really love like your Mass Effects and the games of that, like your Dragon Ages, where it's the games where it's you play, story envelops around you, you make your own choices, the ending shapes kind of around you. Alpha Protocol is that, but if it was a James Bond game.
Yes. Alpha Protocol was so good.
It is, and quite honestly, in playing the game, like I've replayed it not recently, but like maybe like a year or so ago. It's janky as shit.
Yeah.
But back then, it was really good for its time, and the concept and the story was actually surprisingly well told. Especially or SIE, or I think that's who it was, the crazy Russian girl.
Yes.
Oh man, it's so cliche too. Like it's the dumb fun kind of campy, like really old school cliche. Like, I mean, come on, it's a giant muscular blonde Russian girl with a friggin' Spetsnaz beret on her head. Like, what do you expect?
And she's got like a massive like machine gun or sniper rifle across her like shoulders. She just hangs out with.
Yeah, she's just like, yeah, no, I'm just chilling.
See, I remember that game because I put like high charisma on it because that's apparently how I roll.
You talk your way to everything. You just sweet talk out of everything.
You could literally just miss boss fights and just be like, nah, let's not do this. And they're like, okay, cool, whatever.
I mean, what other game was similar to that? I mean, Deus Ex kind of allowed that a little bit too.
Yeah, Deus Ex was another one that a lot of people had gripes with. One of the problems with that game was that you could try and do a pacifist, no kill scenario, but then they would drop you into these boss fight scenarios, and then you're like, Well, I'm stuck now because you have to kill those guys. But Alpha Protocol, yeah, what an awesome game! It was so. I think it was really ahead of its time.
Yeah, if you put that kind of game out now, like with a modern flair to it, I think this could be like a mega hit.
100%.
Especially because it's a genre of games that aren't really like we're getting an IO interactive Bond game finally. So who knows? Maybe we'll finally get some nice good spy games going again, like in terms of like a AAA level. That'd be nice. Alpha Protocol is a game I'd love to see them do that with though, because man, like a lot of people will look at what that game is and think like that doesn't look that special. It doesn't look special, and honestly, it really isn't. But what it does is tell a spy thriller kind of story in ways that you've never really seen it told in a game.
Yeah, it's literally a spy RPG, which is something that we don't get a lot. And the fact that it's made by, I think it's made by Obsidian, right? The guys who made Fallout New Vegas.
I'd have to check, but I
double check that.
Think you're.
Yeah, so it doesn't follow like a linear storyline in the sense of like, you go here, fight this bad guy, fight this bad. Like you can choose what missions you do, and that would impact. So like you could do a mission where you get intel on like some Russian aristocrat or something like that. But you would only get that if you did that mission before you went there. So the decisions you make and like which order you do the levels will impact how you interact with those levels. So they reference like, oh yeah, you were back here in like Cuba or something like that. I'm just making this up. But like, oh, I remember you from Cuba. You met them there. But you may not have, like, if you didn't do Cuba before you played this other level.
Yeah, and you were right, it was Obsidian.
Yeah, so just imagine Obsidian storytelling from New Vegas put into a spy thriller.
Yeah, it was really fun. Like, for its time, it was really damn fun.
Yeah, and I think that brings up another one that, like, kind of needs a second chance is, like, the Deus Ex series. I feel like Cyberpunk kind of, like, that game kind of shows that we need another Deus Ex game. Like, that Cyberpunk
I will say, I've never really cared much for Deus Ex, and then Human Revolution came out, and I like that, and then Mankind Divided came out, and I hated it, and I don't even know why.
I think the reason why is that Human Revolution was more like, I guess my understanding is that game was supposed to be a trilogy. So you had Mankind Divided, you had Human Revolution, and then there was supposed to be a third one. And this was like, I think even at some point it may have just been a DLC or something. But I think the problem is that like Human Revolution was so massive in scope and so large, and then like Mankind Divided felt very small. And this is both a good and bad thing. Like one thing I'm finding right now with Cyberpunk, and it's probably because it's just a new game, but that game feels massive, and I don't know where I'm going, and it doesn't feel like a city. Like it doesn't feel like somewhere I'm going to get familiar with. The cool thing with Prague and Mankind Divided is that I knew where the streets were. Like you play this one map over and over and you go into like the different buildings, that by the end I knew where I was at any given time, and I knew the like locations in the streets, and I can even still think about it today, and I can navigate through that part of Prague. And I think that was a good thing from a gameplay design, but I think it also kind of hinders it in that you're stuck in this little smaller story that doesn't really have, it didn't feel like it had larger implications.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I didn't even last an hour into it. Just for whatever reason, it just bored me, and I'm not sure. Maybe if it just started on a really bad foot, and I was just like, I got some. Because that's the other thing too. Because like we said earlier, there's so many games out there. It's so hard because it's easy to just be like, this isn't doing anything for me. Let's just jump into this thing and try that now.
I think one of the problems with Mankind Divided, if I remember correctly, is that they drop you in and they instantly just dump a whole bunch of exposition on you, and you're like, I don't really remember all this. And I think it throws a lot at you at the very beginning. But that was a good game. One last game I was going to kind of give a shout out to, and it's not one game in particular, but it's one that always gets a lot of crap, but I think if you look back in hindsight is actually pretty good, is the Fable series.
Okay.
Did you ever play that one?
I've played all three of them, and I actually, in retrospect, I hate all three of them, so I can't wait to hear this.
So I think like I played the Fable series back in like in high school / early university, and I thought they were cool. I know Peter Molyneux had a propensity for overselling things and building things up, and probably set expectations higher than they should have.
I mean, realistically, he was a charlatan and a crook. He lied to you a lot of the time just to get you interested.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 100%. But I mean, I never got into that. Like, Fable wasn't one of those ones that I was buying full price, but I was picking them up when they were like $20 a piece, and I thought they were awesome. Like, they cool cartoons, especially Fable 1. Like, it feels like a fantasy RPG kind of game, light in the sense of doing that. Like, I think it's like a good little game in terms of what it is.
They all have good moments. Like Fable 1 is pretty good at just the fantasy aspect. 2 is the only weird one because I think 2 is just one of the weakest games I think I've played in a long time.
I would agree.
Just like, yeah, okay, it's Fable 1 all over again, except we're not gonna have a good ending.
Yeah, I agree.
Just
Fable
like,
2
hey,
is the weaker
here's
two.
this enemy that you totally kind of disliked, and then even if you don't want to shoot him, somebody else will shoot him for you. So either way, it has to end. It's just like the freedom of choice was really not in that game. And then the third game was really cool for about 2 minutes when you got to be the king, and then they took it away and just made it like every other thing where it's just the darkness.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to say that those games are great, but I think a lot of people had problems with them when they first came out, and I think in retrospect, they probably are hated more than they should be.
I mean, we're certainly going to see if they can improve upon it with the actual second chance they're going to give it. So
we will see. But yeah, those are the ones I'd give a shout out to. I mean, there's the obvious one of like No Man's Sky. I think but I've never played it, but I know a lot of people say.
Yeah, a lot of people have given it the second chance. So I don't even think we need to list that one because we're not going to go with it. The last one I can think of, and this is, well, I mean, there's a lot I could think of, but I didn't want to go too long with it.
No, let's go with it.
This one is a game that I want people to be able to play, and for my own selfishness, I want this in 3D at the highest quality level because I would love to see this game properly done. Phantasy Star 4 that used to be on the Sega Genesis was a really like Sega Genesis was not known for being an RPG console because that was pretty much Nintendo's thing, especially with Final Fantasy, and then later on Chrono Trigger on the SNES and many others. Because like you had your Secret of Manas and other games like that too, even like Earthbound and shit too.
Yeah,
Genesis really didn't have it. The only thing they had was Phantasy Star, and I haven't played any of them except for 4. And 4 is like what happens if you get a space RPG. Like Star Ocean kind of does that, but like Phantasy Star is a lot grittier in a like not in terms of like dark, depressing, just more like it's not just super bubbly, colorful shit. Like the online game that they do now is the super bubbly, colorful anime shit. Phantasy Star 4, on the other hand, was pretty realistic in what a space RPG would look like. And for what it was, like for a Sega Genesis game too, like it actually told a really damn good story. And they also had these really cool cuts. Like they found a way to have good like cutscenes in a Genesis game, which was to have like almost like comic strips as like the cutscenes for it. Kind of like what Spider-Man Maximum Carnage did.
Oh yeah.
So like they found a pretty decent way of like telling their story, and like they even had like by the way, they killed off a major playable character long before Aerith ever died, or Aerith I should say, because Final Fantasy changes the names constantly. Yeah. In Final Fantasy 7. Yeah, no, they kill off a character in Phantasy Star 4 long before any of the stuff happened in Final Fantasy. So they did it first. And I'm sure somebody else would be like, actually, this game did it even before that. But no, like, I would love to see, like, with Mass Effect level graphics, to see a Phantasy Star 4. Yeah. Because I would love to play a super epic space RPG with like that sort of anime flair to it, but still like a more grounded, like more realistically like design game instead of it just being all about like the pretty anime girls. As much as I like that too.
Yeah, I mean that's one that I've never really played or seen, so I really can't speak much to it. But sounds awesome.
I mean, the battle theme alone, like if there's anything anybody needs to do, just Google the battle theme for Final Fantasy 4. Or God damn it, I did it again. Phantasy Star 4, and just listen to that, and you'll get a pretty good sense of like this game isn't screwing around.
Now, does it like hold up? Like if I was able to get like an emulation of it, would it be worth playing?
I can still play it and enjoy it. The only thing that you want to check is they don't have descriptions for abilities, because the old games didn't generally do the explanation stuff. But like Final Fantasy would have like fire and ice. You don't always know what the Phantasy Star spells do because they're abbreviated. So that's the only thing I would say is just check what the abilities are beforehand. But as like an old school JRPG, like I can still go back and play that game. It's still pretty nice.
Cool. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a huge sci-fi guy, so a space RPG definitely sounds great.
I mean, literally the first thing you do in that game is find like a secret lab basement where there's like these giant like space ant things.
Cool.
Then there's Earth Defense Force. That's a game that I wish more people would play too. That game is stupid fun.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah,
you want to, and they still make those games, and it's the exact same game. But what else do you want? You get to shoot giant space ants.
Yeah, I remember. So talking about space ants, like giant space ants, that gets me thinking of, like, did you ever play the game Zombies Ate My Neighbors for
Yes.
like the Super NES?
Absolutely.
Like, remind me, did they not have a level where there was like giant ants and stuff like that running around?
I don't know. That might have been later in the game, but there were giant babies. I know that much.
Yes, yeah. I know there was that. I think there might have been giant ants at one point too.
Probably,
but yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me. I got killed way too quickly in those games because they were designed to be hard.
Oh yeah, my sister and I were like just stealing or just using like game codes and stuff to get to like the next level. So
yeah,
our used copy had like game codes, so we're just cheating and putting in those codes to get to those levels. But yeah,
but awesome seriously, people, if you like Starship Troopers, you need to play an Earth Defense Force game.
Yeah,
like legit, it is the closest thing you will ever get to real Starship Troopers, the video game. I'm not even kidding. Like, I'm not even being hyperbolic. It's literally as close as you'll ever get.